Cyclotron. Cyclotron is an electromagnetic device which is used to accelerate the charge particles or charge ions. By cyclotron, we can accelerate proton, alpha particle and ions. This is not used to accelerate the electron, which we'll discuss later on. So now it is a electromagnetic, means here electrical field is there and magnetic field both are there. Due to the electrical field, the force will be, the Lorentz force will be equal to Q F, E will be equal to Q times E. Now, so due to the electrical field, there will force and this will accelerate the charge. The function of electrical field will be accelerate the charge, means increase its velocity or increase its energy. And second is the magnetic field. The FB, Lorentz magnetic force, FB will be equal to QV cross B. Here we take the velocity and the charge which is entering in the magnetic field, its direction is perpendicular to it. So theta is equal to 90. So this will be equal to QVB sin 90, and sin 90 is equal to 1. So force will be equal to, so the magnetic force QB will be equal to FB will be equal to QVB. So due to this force, there will be a circular motion and velocity will not increase. As we have discussed earlier, the velocity will not increase and only the magnetic field will give the circular path to the charge particle. So here we are having two type of fields. One is the electrical field. Electrical field is used to accelerate the charge particle or to increase its velocity and the energy. Second is the magnetic field. The magnetic field is perpendicular to the velocity direction of the charge particle. So it will execute the circular motion, and since the force is perpendicular to the displacement, so work done is zero, so it will not change the velocity, only it will change the direction, and the direction of the path will be a circular path for the magnetic field. So now what is the construction of the cyclotron? So cyclotron it's a heavy magnet, and it are a heavy magnet, and their magnetic field from N to S, this is perpendicular to this. In between these two poles, we have a chamber, and this chamber is a evacuated chamber, so there is no charge or no ionization will take place. Now in between these two, there are two D's. Their shape is like D. They are the two D's. They are empty D type the boxes. They are separated by each another by a very small gap. The gap between D1 and D2 is very small, and they are connected to a oscillator. Now oscillator is a electronic oscillator. It's a AC. Its frequency is very high, and frequency is of the order of megahertz, means 10⁶ hertz is the frequency of this. So this will be AC. So this is the one time period. For half period it is positive, and for next half period it is and alternately. So alternately the polarity will change from positive to negative, and time taken for this is equal to T/2. Now we place the charge particle which is to be accelerated at the center of this. Now here I give you diagram here, extended diagram. Here the NS is there, N is above. This is one day, this is another day, and this is a small gap between these two days. This is a small gap, very small gap between these two days. These are connected to the oscillator whose polarity changes from plus to minus in T/2 time, which is the time period of the oscillator. Now the charge is there. Suppose it is a proton and at any instant it is positive, then it is negative. Then D1 is positive, D2 is negative, then it will accelerate through it. So its velocity will increase. Now the what will be the energy? Energy will be equal to charge multiplied the V. V is the potential difference of the oscillator. It is not the velocity, it is the potential difference of the oscillator. And this is also, V is of the order of 10 raised to 3 volt. So this volt is also high voltage. So as it here, it will be accelerated. So it will be gain the velocity. And due to the magnetic field, which is perpendicular, it will subscribe a circular field. Inside these, the electrical field will be zero. Electrical field will be applicable only when the charge is in between the gap. So here, so as it subscribes the half circular, semicircular path here, and it enters the gap, the polarity change. Means the half time period of this particle is same as half time period of the oscillator. So as it reaches here, the polarity change. Means at this time, this will be negative, this will be positive. So the positive charge will be further accelerated. So its velocity will increase. And it will subscribe the circular path due to the magnetic field. Now again when it enters here, again the field change. It becomes negative and it becomes positive. So as accelerated. So as the charge which reaches in the gap between the D's, the electrical field change and charge is continuously accelerated. When it is its velocity will increase, then velocity will increase, its radius will increase, and it will supply the circular path just like a helical path or spiral path, and it will give the energy, and energy will be increasing in each the turn. So we will find the calculations are mathematics similar to that we have done earlier. So what will be we will find the radius of the centripetal force will be equal to Lorentz force as we had derived. Centripetal force was mv square by r. Lorentz force is qvb sin 90. So qvb. So here we can find the value of r will be equal to v will cancel qm into v by q as we had derived earlier. P is equal to m into v. So P by qb. And P is equal to under root 2ma. So we can write r in terms of mv. P here we say the R will increase. R will increase if V increases or P increases or under root E increases. So when the particle is accelerated due to electrical field, the velocity increases, means the radius of the path will always increases in each times when it passes through the gap. Now what will be the time period? Time period will be equal to 2 pi r bata v. V की value we can find from here. V is equal to q b r bata m. So we substitute it. Then 2 pi r 2 pi r bata v is equal to q b r bata m. R cancel. So this will be equal to qb. So time period will be equal to 2 pi m divided by qb. So here we say, similar to earlier, the time period does not depend upon velocity, does not depend upon the radius. It will only depend upon the magnetic field and the particle, the mass of the particle and charge of the particle. So T will remain constant. What will be frequency? उल्टा कर दो इसको. Frequency is inverse of time period. So it will be equal to Q into P bata 2 pi m. This will be frequency. So frequency also doesn't depend upon R and V. So time period, frequency, omega, we have find omega is V but R, which omega is काउंटर ले लो आप. 2 पाई बटा ओमेगा तो जाएगा. ओमेगा कितना हो जाएगा? ओमेगा विल बी इक्वल टू क्यू बी बटा 2 पाई एम. Sorry. Is equal to V bata R. So omega will be equal to Q B bata M. Omega will be equal to Q B bata M. So we say that omega, T, F, all are constant. They doesn't depend upon the velocity and the radius. So T, frequency and omega, they are constant. Now what will be the kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is equal to 1 by 2 mv square. Maybe substitute the value of v from here. Then this is equal to m into q square v square r bata m square. So 1 m will cancel. So this kinetic energy will be equal to 1 by 2 q square b square r square bata m. Kinetic energy is equal to 1 by 2 q square b square r square bata m. Now r is the radius of path. The maximum radius of the path will be equal to capital R, which is the radius of capital D. Means this D जो है maximum जो radius है, that will be the maximum R. So the kinetic energy will be equal to maximum will be equal to 1 by 2 q square b square capital R square bata m. Now the energy, gain in energy due to the electrical field. The gain in energy will be equal to q into v. V is the potential difference between the two D's. Here the oscillator and the potential difference of the oscillator is capital V. So the energy will be equal to Q into V. Now in one cycle, what will the change in energy? Now in one cycle, the charge will come twice. Once this side and once this side. It comes twice in that D. So the energy gain in one cycle will be equal to Q into 2V. And so if the number of cycles is n cycle, it has completed. When it comes to the radius capital R, then the total energy will be equal to n times this, n into q into 2v. And this will be equal to maximum kinetic energy. So we can find the value of n is equal to maximum kinetic energy divided by 2qv. We substitute here. This will be equal to 1 by 2 q square b square capital R square bata 2 n q v. So this q will cancel. So this will be equal to 1 bata 4 q square q cancel हो गया. So q r square b square m into v. This will be the number of turns completed before the particle. So to get the particle outside, we use the deflecting plate. So deflecting plate will be negatively charged. So it will attract the positive proton and proton is out. And the energy of proton will be, this is maximum, and in turn and number of times subscribe will be this much. So this is all the mathematical portion of this. Now what are the limitation of the cyclotron? The limitation of cyclotron is when the charge is accelerated, its velocity will increase and the velocity of the charge is comparable to the velocity of light. Then the mass will increase. Mass is equal to m is equal to m0. M0 is the rest mass. When the velocity is 0, 1 minus v square the velocity and c is the velocity of light. And as v increases, m increases. And m increases, then t decreases. As we find earlier, so t will decreases. So when m is very well, it rises, then t decreases, means the particle will be not in the gap. Before it is in the gap, the polarity changes, so it will be not isolated. So this is the limitation. For this limitation, we cannot isolate the electron by this method, because for the very small energy, the velocity of electron is comparable to velocity of light. Its mass increases. So by the cyclotron, the electron cannot be isolated or cannot be analyzed, because the time at which the electron reaches to the gap, before it the electrical field change, so it will not further be isolated. So it is not possible to isolate electron by cyclotron. And second defect is that we can isolate the charge, but it cannot isolate the uncharged particle. They cannot be there. Suppose we want a neutron, it cannot be isolated by this. Now, what are the uses of cyclotron? Cyclotron is used to isolate the particles. By isolating the particles, we can reaction with the nucleus and we can bombard the nucleus. And the alpha decay experiment, that is by the, we can have the use in the radioactivity, means if we have a alpha particle isolate and it falls on target nuclei and it is absorbed, and then the radioactive substance are made. If we have ions and we isolate the ions and the isolated ion is fused in the solid, then it will be another material. So we can find prepare the another material by isolating the ions, and when this ions is absorbed by the solid, then the new material is formed. So in this way, the cyclotron is used, number one, for bombarding the nucleus. Second, to find the other materials, and to find the radioactive substance.